This is E.T. Training diets among boxers. Well, they varied greatly over the decades. With the post-1960 introduction of pharmaceuticals, both training and diet have changed dramatically. So I'm going to look at how fighters got fit before such enhancers, when men were, naturally, men. One of the first heavyweight championship bouts of yore took place on February 7 of 1849 in Maryland. It was between Yankee Sullivan and Tom Hyer. Now, E.T. plans to cover the Sullivan-Hyer bout, so I'm not going to go into details about it today, but I'm going to cover how each man trained, old school style. Both men began training in New York State. It was about 2 months before that February encounter. Sullivan training near a racetrack. Hyer was near a mountainous area by McComb's Dam. This is in New York for both men. Sullivan would get up at daybreak. He'd run 5 to 6 miles on the track. Then he went to a workout room and he worked with dumbbells. Now, it's unclear what these were at that time. They could have been either literal bells that had the clapper removed. Ben Franklin trained with those. Or they may have been more like Indian clubs. Well, whichever they were, Sullivan would shadow box with these, punching out maybe 600, 700 times. Then, after a short rest, Sullivan would work the heavy bag. It was hanging from the ceiling, and it weighed exactly what Hyer weighed. Then Sullivan would wash his arms, chest, and head, always in cold water. There is then no shower or bath, no hot water. Next, he'd be at breakfast. It was always a large, rare beef steak, seasoned only with English ale. Sometimes he'd have broiled chicken, but 2 weeks before the fight, he ate only mutton. Notice there are no real carbohydrates here. Then Sullivan had an hour's rest. Then he'd run 8 to 10 miles, again on the track. It was reported that he sweat only a little. That's probably because of the December cold. Then he was doused with cold water, not once but several times. Then they'd rub him down briskly with very coarse towels. Then he would every day put on fresh flannels. Then came more food. He ate twice a day. He had a steak again. Then he'd rest an hour. By late afternoon, he is sparring, and again striking the heavy bag, and again working the dumbbells. Then more cold water. Then, toward sundown, he'd take a 4 to 5 mile walk. By 9 p.m., he was asleep. As for Hyer, his routine was similar, except that he climbed and ran up very steep hills near McComb's Dam, and he worked his whole body rowing in a boat. He would also dine not twice like Sullivan, but 3 times in a day, almost always on mutton. Both men, Sullivan and Hyer, abstained from salt and pepper, tobacco, alcohol, and any stimulants. It's unclear what stimulants might have been used then. Possibly coffee, tea, maybe coca leaves. By fight time, both men were reported to appear fit. Now, E.T. will cover that famous encounter later. Meanwhile, thanks for watching. This is E.T.